Hello there and welcome to the Double Digit Hockey Podcast special edition once again for you today. I have a special guest joining me on the line, Ryan Leslie of Sportsnet. Thank you so much, Ryan, for making time for us on the show today.
Great to be with you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. Family's doing well in the midst of all this fun we're having with this pandemic?
Yeah, it's we're hanging in there like everybody else and just trying to be honest with you, John, just trying to, keep our fingers and toes crossed. Even the kids are that the game comes back under the best and safest conditions. But we're all looking forward to the day that we find out that it's official.
Yeah, it's pretty weird, being in December, not having an NHL game to host, I'm assuming, on your end.
Isn't it really? Yeah, well said, because this is the time of year that you're looking forward to those 3, maybe 4, but usually just 3-day break to kind of, all right, let's catch our breath. It's been a wild race to this point, and that old saying where teams talk about if you're in a playoff position by American Thanksgiving, well, chances are you're going to be there when the dust settles. So yeah. Right now is typically a very crucial time of year on the hockey schedule. And I know in the past, like, looking forward, you're looking at the calendar, you're looking at your watch, and you're like, okay, X number of games left. You got to go here, you got to go there. And then, all right, on the 23rd, let's say you're going to be home and you're starting to ramp up. Well, now we're ramping up for Christmas in this uncharted territory where I'm actually going to have some time with the kids. And then I'm going to be like, let's get back to work. Let's drop the puck and let's get going.
Yeah, you got to be anxious. I had Lou on the show last week, and he was just aching to do anything. Yeah, anything other than sit at his house. Right? He's just itching to get back at the rink, like most of us are.
He'd be calling softball games that he's already seen and recorded from 5 years ago. Right now, he'd be like in the basement, just calling it, ready to go. He'd be calling Flames games. This guy's jacked. I know he's getting ready for World Jr. preview shows. He's all over it. He's just one of the best, and his enthusiasm is infectious. I'm glad you had him on. Was he awesome? I would imagine.
He was terrific. He was still trying to figure out a way to get into that bubble in Edmonton. He's trying to mask himself as a player or something, get himself in that bubble somehow so he can be part of that broadcast because he's itching for it. So
it was no different in the summer when he was back in Ontario and we were heading up to do the playoffs, and I just knew it was killing him to and I guess he was out here. I shouldn't say that. He was out in Calgary, but then would go back to Ontario. And I knew it was just killing him. The man just loves to be at any and every sporting event. And if it's got a Canadian maple leaf on it, the passion goes through the roof. I will make sure I tune in to see how he was with you, because it's always fun. It's always informative. It's educational and entertaining all at once whenever he's around. So I would go so far to say this. I would say there is nobody who knows, how do I word this properly? I don't think there's anybody who knows more about the people playing the game at all levels across this entire country like he does. There are insiders, don't get me wrong, and they break trades, and they'll tell you about the signings, and they'll tell you about July 1st and all sorts of news and info. But when it comes to eyes on in rinks and a knowledge of what's happening in Europe, what's happening at the U16 level, what's happening at the NHL level, eyes on in person, and just an overall knowledge base, I don't think there's anybody who can touch him. I
agree with you there. Yeah, I don't think he just watches the game. I think he takes it home as homework after the game, studies
he devours it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I thought I was a hockey fan until I met Lou, and then I'm like, oh, I better.
We all did. We all thought it. Like we all watch games at home or in person. Now I will say this, and he's a big believer in it. There is nothing nothing beats in-person game. You just notice everything. You see things. You have a sense of how it feels. Which is why, and not that I want to go down the road analytics versus the eye test, but when you watch in person, you see and you feel what's happening and you understand why it's happening versus, the numbers and the fancy stats as they call them. But this guy has a hunger, a knowledge, and I will say a respect level across the country like not many.
Yeah. Absolutely brilliant. He's awesome. We'll venture into some of the same topics that I went with Lou, get your view
Yeah.
on a few of them. And we'll start with he was watching, obviously, it's Lou. He's watching a lot of the stuff from Europe, watching a lot of those guys over there develop. And the one guy that we started talking about is the one that everyone's talking about in Juuso Valimaki. Have you had a chance to view any of his games over in Europe?
Just a little bit. And he sent me some clips. I just had Juuso Valimaki on my Instagram live conversation the other day. And Lou and I share a very similar feeling towards the young man. And I was talking to Brad True-Living just informally about him yesterday, I think maybe the day before. And just first of all, the Calgary Flames have a quality young man on that blue line who has gone through more, you know, in the face of potentially losing your dream, getting so close and being setback after setback after setback. The mental fortitude of this young guy can never be understated and underestimated because, first of all, he's a quality person. Met his parents when he was drafted. Had a chance to be around him coming up. And you just get the sense right away about what a good young man this is. Forget about the hockey for just a moment. And I know you draft hockey players first and foremost, but there is such a massive other side to this, that who he is almost as important as what he is on the ice. It's certainly more important, but to the hockey team, because of who he is, what he's had to undergo and withstand and be patient with, that's going to serve him well going forward. This is a quality young man with all kinds of talent. Now, I will say Lou has probably had more eyes on him, either from the Tri-Cities days or just, watching him come up either through Finnish teams or even more recently over in Finland. I've seen enough of him to know what a player he is. And I've also done my homework on what the scouts and what Hockey Ops thinks about him. This kid's a stud. And when I spoke to him the other day, he mentioned a couple things. And I always love hearing, what's important to a young player. Some guys are going to say stats. Some guys are going to say winning. Some guys are going to say, making the team and getting ice time, whatever it is. First and foremost, this guy's priorities, as he left it with me, was let's play, let's stay healthy, let's focus on a Stanley Cup. And then in that conversation of the Calder, which he is still eligible for, quietly, personally, that means something to him. It's not what he's gunning for. That's not what's driving him. But this is a player who's like, yeah, I can be in that conversation when I play my game. And so that is a byproduct, hopefully, of him being healthy, hopefully of him playing meaningful minutes, hopefully of him being on a Stanley Cup contending team, and hopefully him playing the way he knows he's capable of. In Finland, most recently in Finland as a kid, in the Western Hockey League, he knows he belongs. He knows what he's capable of. He's humble, but he knows what he's capable of.
Absolutely. I managed to catch a little bit of that Instagram chat, and the biggest thing that jumped out for me with Juuso Valimaki was how humble he was as a person, knowing that he is still growing as a man, and he took those injuries on, and he was still happy about things, and he's still driven to do things. Just unbelievable, the mindset that this young man has. My first experience with Juuso, I Leopard Hurricane season ticket holder, and he came through Lethbridge last year, or his last year that he was eligible to come. And the way that he commanded the game and controlled the game was unbelievable. But the biggest thing still about him is that humbleness that he has, that he knows he's good, but he still has room to grow and be better.
Yeah, you're right. And there's a poise there. There's a there's a quiet confidence. There's a reassurance, which I could only imagine being on the ice with him or being a teammate must really count for a lot, because everything's calm back here. You do your thing. We're good. We're good back here. And I'm going to do some things in the offensive zone every now and then, but we're good back here. And so I can't imagine being that age, being as close to realizing my dream as he is and was, and to have those amount of horrific setbacks with that injury and with the knee and just, thing, and then a pandemic and then you think you're close and that you're going to come with the team, but you're not going to play. And it's just like, wow. And so it speaks to who he is. It speaks to where he's come from and how he was raised. And I just know in my dealings with him and Brad Treliving that everybody is now fully on board with where they're at, where they're headed, and the hardships will make him better in the long run. They know that.
Absolutely. His mental toughness will be one of the biggest strengths of his game going down the stretch here for him as he tries to make the National Hockey League because of the three injuries really he had, because the last one in Tri-Cities, he had a little bit of injury problems there as well. So he's really mentally tough, and I think it's going to bode very well for him going forward, and they're going to be able to rely on him in a number of different ways. Yuso getting games over in Europe, Lou and I talked about this as well, and how important that was for Valimaki to get back on the ice and just to play simple hockey games, and how he can be prepared. In your eyes, how important was it for those games to have him hit the ground running when he makes the NHL camp here?
Oh, this was huge, and I'm quite certain that's exactly what Lou said. I don't want to repeat anything he's saying, but I'm telling you, that was huge for a young man. And confidence, ability, but the confidence can't be, taken for granted. Like, this guy had to take hits. This guy had to test out the knee. This guy had to be in game situations again. And, I spoke with him the other day. He's ready physically, mentally. I don't think there's a fear, which is huge, right? When anybody comes back from an injury, you wonder, you got to get him back up there. You got to get him going again. And this was essential for him. And I think it was a brilliant move by the Flames to allow it, facilitate it, make sure that it was a positive. And, he got to stay at home and he got to play near his, his friends and family. And he's feeling good about himself and mentally, forget about just the game for a sec, but mentally, this guy feels right again. He needed that mentally. I can tell you, it crushed him to watch the team go out on the road for games when he made, before he was coming back. And he would watch the team go out and play games. Everybody's packing. I can remember being in the bowels of the Saddle Dome before, you have your availability, and then everybody, including myself, is getting ready to jump on a plane. He's slowly walking by on crutches. He couldn't look at it big picture. He had to look at it in increments, or he was going to lose his mind. Credit to the training staff of the Calgary Flames, full credit. And credit to Brad Treliving and company for allowing him to go home last Christmas and feel human. It was daunting. And if you looked at it big picture, you were going to really struggle. And they took it and they broke it into smaller things. And I would talk to him at the Dome. I would see him. I would text him. We'd go back and forth a little bit. His attitude never wavered. There were times it was dark for him. I shouldn't say it never wavered. There were times it was tough. But he always knew, thanks to some help, but thanks to himself, how to get back on track. It was tough for him, and it was emotional.
Awesome. I can't wait to see this guy throw on the Flaming, seeing it on the ice there, and show us all of this hype that we've all been heaping upon him. But he's got very capable shoulders to do it, though.
I don't know about I'm worried a little bit about the hype. I understand the excitement, but I hope there's not too much hype for this guy right now. And I don't know as though there is. Thankfully, he's joining a team that it's got some new faces, some proven faces, and some, expectations, but I got my dog here biting my ankle. But honestly, I hope the hype stays in check, unless we're talking about it being warranted. Then I'm all in. Unless we're talking about the fact that he is just on some kind of heater where everybody's buzzing because of the way he's playing, and he steps in and is an immediate impact. But I know the Flames are cautious, and I know they want to bring him along properly, and I know he's the same. And I hope the fan base is the same. So let's just let it happen, and we'll hope that it all works out in the end for everybody.
Good. I'm glad you went there as well with the let it happen, because that's going to bring me to my next point. There's a lot of speculation on Twitter. We all know how fun that is, that social media, of, well, with Yuso coming along, is it time to maybe move on from a guy like a Noah Hannafin? And I'm in the mindset of, well, no, let's let this young man grow and use this Flames defensive core and use the depth to make this team better. What say you on the conversation?
Yeah, I really hope that, and I've heard the whispers, don't get me wrong. I know it's out there, and it's more than just Twitter. There's conversation by legitimate sources about Noah Hanifin and his future in Calgary. I'm here to tell you, at this point, just pump the brakes on that. He's got almost 400 games under his belt. He's a young man. Was he 23? Yusuf Valimaki's 22. You know, like, let's just pump the brakes for a minute. This guy, I had a great conversation with him off the record the other day, but the one thing he did tell me was, and that I'm comfortable and he's comfortable with me sharing, is that he has learned a lot about, you know, where he was as a young player coming in as an 18-year-old. Maybe should have gone back to college for one more year. Went into that situation in Carolina. It wasn't terrible, but it might not have been the best for him. You got to remember, Noah Hanifin was a stud, and you talk to Matthew Tkachuk about Noah Hanifin. They played together as kids. Noah Hanifin was a man-child. He was always ahead, bigger, stronger, better than kids his own age. This was just, he was a freak. And the other kids, like Matthew and other players, just knew how good he was. And then they eventually started to catch up, and he started to develop his game in different ways. But the one thing he left me with was, you know, he said to me, the last 100 games of his career have been a more essential learning tool for him. They've been the more crucial games than anything else. He's learned more in the last 100 about himself as a, you know, because we forget about this. These are young men learning about themselves and how to play and who they are on and off the ice, and confidence and competition. And geez, I thought I was this, maybe I'm more over here, and now I'm this. Like, a coach made me feel like this. I've got so much rolling around as a young player, but this guy knows right now he's in the right situation. He feels better about who he is and what he is now as a young man and as a player than ever before. And I think he knows he wants to play, his words, he wants to play free. He doesn't want to be thinking too much. He doesn't want to be overthinking. He wants to just play free. Don't think. Let it flow. Let it happen. And just play free. And those are his words. And I think it's a great way to say, here's a young player who might be ready to turn a corner. Is he here for the duration of his career? I don't know. He doesn't know. But I know he loves it here. I know he loves his team. I know he loves playing with Rasmus Anderson. He's tight with Chucky. And this is a group that is a real harmonious group. There's not a guy in that room right now where you're like, this guy's a problem. There's nothing like that right now. So if this group can figure it out, because sometimes you need a little sandpaper, sometimes you need a little, you know, wild card in all of this. But this is a group that if they can figure it out, and how to figure out how to play when it's hard, the postseason, when it gets really hard, and how they can hate losing more than they like winning, because that's who I want. You know, I don't care what it is. It really doesn't matter. If you hate to lose more than you, everybody loves to win. Yeah. But do you hate to lose enough, or you're like, oh, okay, let's go to dinner. We lost. Big deal. This group's getting tired of losing. And I want to see if they're ready to take another step, because these young guys are getting older. They're getting better. That's another year of development, another year of that pit. This sucks. I hate it. First round exits, second round, you know, exits, whatever, not making it. All of it stinks. We're tired of the same script. Oh, sure, we get our X number of points. We get our X number of goals. Great, feels good. What does it translate to? Nothing. They know that. And so Noah Hanifin is a great example, I think, of an evolving player who I think is ready to take another step. I think there's more in there. He wants to play physical, but he wants to play free. And I think he also, depending on who he's paired with, if it's Chris Tanev or Rasmus, whatever it is, if he's with Chris Tanev, I firmly believe there's an opportunity to be a little bit more offensive. Does he have a mean streak? I don't know. I don't think so, but I think he can play more physical. And he's a beast. He's got a frame on him, and he's a good kid.
I'm a big Noah Hanifin fan. I'm on Twitter all the time defending him in his game. And I think a lot of people overlook the fact that he's a quieter player, but he's got amazing wheels. He has great vision, and he can have a very good first pass out of his zone. And that, if used properly, is a very effective player. And I'm glad you brought up Chris Tanev. A lot of people are saying Chris Tanev could be that guy for Yusuf Valimaki. I think he can, but I think he could be very useful for a guy like Noah Hannafin, a guy who looks like he's ready to take the next step. We look at the job that Tanev did with Hughes last year in Vancouver and the strides that young man was going to take. I think a similar thing. Now, he won't be as offensive as Hughes is, but I think that could be a big thing for Noah Hannafin's progression this coming up season. And even if it's Rasmus Anderson playing with them, they're both on a very good trajectory in their careers. And I think Noah could be a backbone of the defensive group for a long time, especially with the age that he's at and that amazingly affordable contract that he's under as well.
Yeah, you're right. There's some good points. And I think Chris Tanev will be a real steadying, reassuring presence back there. Keep him healthy too, by the way. That's essential for him. And you should probably know, and your listeners know, in Vancouver, they referred to him as Dad. He was just that guy back there who really, took on that role. And you mentioned Rasmus Anderson. I mean, there's a player with some real juice, some real jam. Been around that kid ever since he was drafted. And, he's got a little edge to him. And on top of it all, he's got a lot of talent. And maybe more so now, he took a lot of abuse for his physical fitness levels when he arrived, a lot. And he took it all in stride and he gave it back. He runs his mouth better than anybody on the ice. And you think about, him getting called fat on the ice, him get, big head, whatever it was, he would take the verbal shots. And you know what he did? He locked it down. He proved everybody wrong. He got himself in shape. And what it did is it gave him another, if you can imagine, layer of confidence out there to go along with his ability. He's unstoppable right now. And I think, the sky's the limit for that guy. Is he going to be a top 2 guy? Probably. If it isn't this season, we'll see, I think, a large percentage of him as a top 2 guy with Mark Giordano. We've seen it. I've liked it. You've liked it. Everybody's liked our sample size of what we've seen. So keep it going. Who knows where it ends up? It's going to be moving parts. He's definitely a top 4 guy. I think a top 2 pairing guy. And I think you mentioned the word backbone. This guy's going to be around a long time. He was a 2nd-round pick a few years ago. And honestly, the conditioning might have been the only reason why he wasn't a 1st-round pick. This guy's got an it factor on all fronts too, on the ice, in the room, and in the media, with the fans. He's got a lot to like, and I think Flames fans already do love him. I think there's more in there still.
Absolutely. I remember his draft year and how glowing the Flames brass was about this kid and how they stole him in the second round of the draft. Yeah. And we're starting to see the fruits of that labor. You look at him, Anderson, Hannafin, Valimaki, all these young kids around. Now it kind of echoes how important a guy like a Chris Tanev is. Very quietly one of the best defensemen in the National Hockey League over the last few years, being out on the West Coast. He doesn't get enough love, I don't think, across the National Hockey League.
And injuries. Injuries have snuffed that conversation out too.
Absolutely. And so in your role over the course of your dealings with Sportsnet, I'm not sure how much you've had to deal with Chris Tanev, but can you speak to the character and how that will mix well with that young group of defensemen?
Honestly, that's the word right there, character. And what you've seen the Flames do, John, is go out and reinvent the culture in their room. Reinvent might be a little strong. They've just changed it a lot. And it's about character. And it's about guys who want to be here. It's about guys over time who've proven what we said earlier. They don't like to lose. They want to be battling it out, doing whatever it takes. And you're seeing that more and more and more. You don't want to be here, chances are, or you don't want to, sacrifice your body or your time or your commitment or your fitness. There's somewhere else for you. But now a guy like Chris Tanev comes in here, and high praise from my colleagues who cover him on a daily basis in Vancouver. This is all about character. This is all about a quiet burn, a quiet, competitive, willing to do anything to get the job done. And there is also a familiarity, John, with he and a number of players already existing in that locker room. So he trains back in Ontario with Mark Giordano. I had a chance a few years ago to take in one of those training sessions with Mark Giordano and Sean Monahan. And if Chris Tanev's coming into that, look out, because it's pretty impressive. And so he knows a bunch of these guys. And heck, the Flames raided so many Canucks that it's going to feel like home for so many of these guys. There's, and the fact that, Markstrom is best friends and living with Elias Lindholm. I mean, then you got Tanev, you've got Domingue, you've got Josh Levo. I mean, there's so many guys. This thing is starting to come together, and I think, you can throw out that we're just trying to figure each other out, get to know one another. That's gone, because these guys all know each other now. So they're going to hit the ground running. And I think Chris Tanev is going to be, again, stay healthy, but no matter where he comes out this season, he's going to be a presence in the room and a steadying force on the ice.
I think for me, this offseason has been about obviously improving the team, but the underlying topic that I seem kind of, I don't know how to word this, but the underlining way I think Treliving's gone about his job is he's added some character to the current group with characters that he kind of already knows. And so we've brought in players that are already tight-knit together and make a transition pretty easy coming up in the season coming. You got all those relationships already developed that should make the transition for this team into next season a little easier whenever we get going here.
Yeah. I mean, keep in mind, they got a book on everybody and they know everybody. And it's not like just because they happen to be in the province next door, just saved on some scouting fees and away we go. They're close. We'll just steal from the neighbor beside us, not the guy down the block. But these guys know everybody. They travel everywhere. And what I love in all of this is, okay, familiarity is great. And, there's some cohesiveness. That's amazing. But especially if we get into a Canadian division, not only have you robbed or, robbed is strong, but you've certainly gone in and taken key pieces away from one of your biggest rivals. And on top of it, you also prevented them from going to another Canadian rival in Edmonton or elsewhere. So you've done your homework. You know who's good. You grabbed arguably, maybe not even arguably, the number one UFA goaltender, and you needed one, even though goaltending has not been a problem in the postseason the last couple of years. Mike Smith and Cam Talbot both were doing their job.
Tremendous,
in the postseason. That's fair. But long haul, you went out and you prevented your rival from bringing them back, and you kept them from going to another one. It was a shrewd bunch of moves for Brad. And I know that there's been a lot of talk about it online and elsewhere about the Flames or the Canucks, all that stuff. We get it, but it's pretty strategic and bold.
I laugh at those little Calgary Canuck comments because they're just like, well, the moves that he did bringing in those Canucks were all strategic, and they all will play a big role for the Flames in this coming up season. I have no doubt about it. Especially, even Levo, I think, will have a nice role on this roster. I think there's a nice hole for him.
Totally, and they loved him going back to the Toronto days. They were in on, like, I can tell you there was discussions on acquiring Josh Levo back in the day when he was with the Leafs. And Lou, when he was with the Leafs, he wasn't going to part with him. And then finally, Kyle Dubas is at the helm, and it became a little bit more, he became expendable. But there's been a like on for Josh Levo for some time. And I can tell you, talking to some other players, I don't know Josh at all, but I've talked to some players about him. They're like, this guy's great. So, they're high praise. I don't think the Canucks wanted to lose him. I don't think, much of the Leafs wanted to say goodbye to him, but I know Calgary has been wanting to give him a home for a while.
I've heard that as well, and that's when you finally can bring in the kind of players in, they come with a little bit of expectations. So we'll see what he can bring to the Flames. All these additions have been great. All of these additions have improved this roster. I believe that wholeheartedly. There's one guy though that's already with the Flames and has been for the last little while, trying to find his way into this roster full time. I'm talking about Oliver Shillington. His mindset heading into the season's got to be a little bit different. Do you see a fit for him still in Calgary?
That's a tough one. It's a lot of talent there, and he's had a confidence about him from the get-go. He slipped a bit in the draft, but there was a lot of talk about him coming into that draft and him potentially being a first rounder. He was a second rounder, as everybody here knows, along with Rasmus in the same year. I don't know as though I see him here long-term, but I see him as an NHLer. And I don't know if that's offensive to him or not. I just don't know if the opportunity is here the way it might have been in the past. And, he's a bit of a riverboat gambler. And, I've watched him from draft day, again, met with him on draft day and his family, talked to him, got to know him right away, watched him come up, watched him go to Stockton, watched his development, watched some good nights, watched some nights where he would love to have back. There's a lot of skill there. That's a good young man too. But I think he's got to figure out how to eliminate some errors in his game. This is just an outsider's perspective. Never played at any high level. But I can tell you that the book on him is, you got to eliminate some mistakes, and he's got all the tools in the bag. Hopefully he can get it put together, because I think he's an NHLer. I just wonder if it'll be here long-term. They're very high on him. I don't want to create any negative buzz about it. They're very high, and the expectations are high on him. That's the way he would want it. That's the way they want it. He's got to go out and prove it to them. He's got to prove it to himself that this is where he can be. And I think he can. But he's got to just kind of, I don't know if it's a simplify his game or not, but it's got to be the player that he knows he can be. And that's a difference maker. And right now he just hasn't been, but I think it's still in there.
Yeah, that's exactly how I think as well. I think there is a role that he can carve for himself if he can cut out those mental errors. What it feels like mental errors when I'm watching the games.
He might get a real chance, though. He might get a real chance this year because of, a number of factors. And, is he going to come over and play a different side than he's used to with the departure of TJ Brodie? Somebody might have to do that. So we'll see. But this is a guy that there's a little opportunity there for a couple guys. With the departures of Brodie and Hamonic and Stone and, just those are just the ones off the top of my head, but you got to go out and seize that opportunity. You got to go out and take that job, make it yours, and don't let anybody else come in, because they're not standing still back there. They're not, the Flames are not standing still with where they want to be. Are you either in or you're in the way? And I think that goes for everybody.
Yeah, he's got some competition there in that bottom role there. We got that Connor Mackey, the team's very high on. You brought in Nesterov.
Very high on him.
Yeah, Lou was very glowing of Matt. Yeah, Lou was very glowing of him in that episode I had him on, and he really likes likes where the player's at and his mindset, and he says he's going to play sooner than later. So there's competition for Oliver.
Conroy about him. He loves him. He swears by him. He says, that guy's next. He's coming. He's coming for a job. So he is, there's some people that are turning heads. I loved him when I saw him in camp. Now, that's a bit of a different example because he's playing free. He knew he wasn't going to the bubble. He had nothing to lose, so go out and turn some heads. He did. He was a presence out there, and I'm sure Lou alluded to it. Yeah,
Lou also alluded to the fact that he's not an 18-year-old trying to, make impressions. He's 23. He's in it. He's ready to go.
Man.
And that is automatically some competition there for guys like Shillington. Very excited.
Frame on him too.
Yeah, very excited to see how that bottom part of the roster shakes up. That's a big.
Is that a Rick Tabaracci jersey behind you?
Yes, it is, sir.
Wow.
That's actually a good story. People on Twitter, we were talking, I don't know how the conversation came up one day, and I saw this jersey on there, and I threw it on Twitter. I'm like, someone's got to buy this jersey. Next thing I knew, I had a bunch of people transferring me money. They're like, you're getting that jersey. It was amazing. Some amazing people out there who just teamed up.
You never sold it for me. They didn't give you enough.
Yeah, no, I kept it. That's awesome. I grew up in the Tabby days, so a little sentimental value there for me.
Wow.
So, well, we'll go on to the goaltending trade since we're talking about you. You talked about Markstrom. You talked about the top UFA goaltender coming in there. You pair him with a guy who's very familiar with the team in David Rittich, forming a very good duo. And now on top of that, they have themselves a new goaltending coach in Jason LaBarbera. That just came down today. So with all of that in the mixture, this goaltending should be set up to be successful not only this season, but for years to come with this group.
Yeah, and we'll see. Jason LaBarbera, I know him. I think he's ready for this, and I think it's going to be a nice fit. Jordan Sigalet has been really good, too, at the work he's put in. I just feel bad because I don't know as though Jordan Sigalet's had the same quality of goaltenders that they suddenly have. And now, and it's a promotion of sorts for Jordan Seglet to go to the director of goaltending. And he's going to oversee the all of it. It's great. Happy for him.
Mm-hmm.
But he didn't have the same tandem that Jason LaBarbera is about to have. And mind you, he didn't have the same career Jason LaBarbera did either. So you hope there's a little magic there. The relationship's already started to blossom. But I want to talk about David Riddick because I had him on an Instagram Live a little while ago. And, for him, he feels he's got something to prove, understandably. He has not been given the nod in the postseasons. It was Mike Smith. It was Cam Talbot. Didn't sit well. Didn't have a good outing when we last saw him. That doesn't sit well with him. And, he's a fiery, emotional, loose guy. I wonder, and he said to me that he thinks they can be the best tandem in the National Hockey League. I wonder where we see some change to his game. He came in last year. Was it last year when he said he wanted to play 60 games? I don't know. He carried the mail for a long time last year, but I think he burnt out. And I wonder what allows him to alter his game and his approach. And I wonder if there's a little bit more of a maturity to his game, a little bit more maturity to his approach. We've seen the stick flips. We've seen the craziness and all that. I wonder if we see a little bit more of a reserve David Riddick going on. Not to suggest he's been humbled, but maybe a little bit of growth. And now the realization that, whoa, boy, I better be prepared at all times. And, this is a fiery, competitive guy with a lot of talent. And remember, he was an all-star for crying out loud last year. Now, say what you want about that. Were there other names who couldn't or wouldn't go? That's up for debate. But he was there, and he had some brilliant performances throughout his time and tenure with Calgary. He's got to figure it out too. He's not the only one, but he's got to figure out how to get to another level. And I think, working alongside a guy like Jason LaBarbera, working alongside a guy like Markstrom, there is no reason why they couldn't be one of the best tandems in the NHL. So what's he going to do his part in that? I wonder if there's a little bit difference in his approach from David Riddick and a maturity to his game.
I'm glad you went there. I really am, because that's one of the bigger questions that I have heading into the season as well. Is obviously the signing of Markstrom is good for the team, but for David himself, it's probably a little, what the heck kind of a situation. So it's a good mindset to have to come in here and to prove people. So I think he's in a good spot to show something. And I too wonder what we see from him this year, more picking his spots to be emotional outbursts rather than every game like we've seen from him. We all love that about David and about his flamboyantness and how awesome and emotional he can get. But like you've said, I wonder if we see a more reserved, controlled David Riddick going into this season.
Yeah,
good point.
Maybe the spark and the fire and the edge got him here. Maybe it continues. I mean, he knows the recipe to get to the NHL. You and I don't know what it is, but he knows what it is, and it's got him here. So easy for me to sit back and say that, but maybe he floors it and keeps her going and harnesses it and channels it, and all of a sudden you see him as a guy. I just think, no matter how many games he plays, I think he's a real valuable tool here. I don't think he's trade bait at this point. I just don't see it. I don't see a lot of guys knocking on the door to back up Markstrom at this point. And if we know one thing, and we've all watched this game our whole lives, you need goaltending. And you can look at Dallas. You can look at a lot of teams where you need two. You need two. So they got two.
When the Flames' last playoff run to 2004, they used two. They had Roman Turk, he got injured, and they had to go out and get Kiprusoff. So there's examples all over the place of it. And so I'm with you though. David has a lot to prove here, and I don't think he's trade bait. You got this condensed mini schedule coming for whenever the National Hockey League gets going again here. You're going to need both guys to be on top of their game the whole way.
Bad days.
Yeah, it's not going to be easy.
Yeah, they need both.
Yeah, absolutely. Overall, though, all of these additions to the team on paper makes them better. Does it give you a little bit more of excitement for next season to see how these changes help the team get better?
Every year you're excited about new faces. Every year, and you're ready to go in the fall. Right now, this is about the postseason, John. This is about the postseason. So, yeah, we're going to go through whatever it looks like. Yeah, it's going to be different. Yeah, we're going to be excited. You are, I am, everybody is. But honestly, the measure here, as we all would agree, is the postseason. Figure out who you are, figure out how good you are, hammer it down, get, everything systems wise and everybody up to speed. But really, this only matters come the playoffs because
100%.
enough is enough. And they know it. Hockey ops knows it. The fan base knows it. Everybody's been patient. That's great. It's got to get going in the playoffs. I don't want to say wake me when it's the playoffs because I'm excited.
Yeah.
And I want to see what kind of hand everybody's been dealt here. But really, it's about playoff players. Did they bring playoff players in? Are players who are here about to become playoff players? That's the storyline. And you can go and tell other stories and gauge. And that's what's going to keep us busy through the winter nights and into the spring and early summer. But the postseason, that's what matters. That's all that matters.
100%. 100%. Now, the man that's going to lead this charge, he's had a whole offseason now and a little bit more to get his game plan together. He's got a full roster now, an improved roster. He's got a goaltender. In your dealings with Jeff Ward, and in your opinion, what makes him the man to lead this charge of this Calgary Flames team right now?
Jeff Ward is a teacher and he's a communicator, and he's also not ego-driven or based. This guy's got humble beginnings. This guy's had to work hard to get here. Oh, and by the way, he's a Stanley Cup champion. Oh, and by the way, he was tabbed with the task of identifying the leadership group in Boston before there was one. And he made guys who were great players like Patrice Bergeron step out of their comfort zone and become leaders. They were great players, but he had this knack of bringing everybody, identifying them and bringing them together with a lot of different ways to make a leadership group. He also has the loyalty as a result of Milan Lucic, who's also an extension of him in that room, who's also tough, a Stanley Cup champion, a veteran. And, there's a lot of players will come in and not like their coach just because they feel they have to say, I don't like the coach or he's not playing me or what have you. But Jeff is a communicator and he is a teacher and he's won and he's been around great players in this game. So if you're a young guy or a guy who's not really done anything in this league, no matter what your birth certificate says, you better listen to him. And he's been a well-respected assistant coach. Now, as a head coach, he's got a new deal and he's got a chance and a little bit of leash to run with this thing. So my hope is that players can park whatever differences they may say in philosophy or anything along those lines, and everybody pulls on the same rope in realizing that you're in this together. Not more, or it used to be different where I played before, whatever it is. This guy knows how to bring people together. He's done it. He's won. And he's not ego-driven or ego-based. He's very humble. He can be very harsh if he wants to be, but you'd never see that outwardly. He's a class act. He's got a lot of respect. And I hope that, for his sake, that he finds success here because he deserves it and he works hard.
I hope to see that success too. It's not an easy job to get a bunch of 23 grown men to buy into one thing. And he seems to have that ability to bring guys together into a driven goal. We've seen it through his tenure in Boston and other stops along the way. We've seen it in Calgary for a couple of years now. Yeah, Jersey. And it'll be interesting to see now after a whole offseason and how prepared he is to help those guys get to the next level.
Preparation is not the problem. You'll never catch Jeff Ward underprepared, ever.
Not the first time I've heard that.
No, you're just not. It won't be about preparation. It really won't be. So he's got to figure out how to push the right buttons for everybody. That, to me, is the biggest challenge for any coach at this level. Because you mentioned it when you said you get 23 different guys coming from different backgrounds, different approaches, different mindsets. How do you push the right buttons to get the most out of them? I think he's pretty good at it. And he may not have the years of experience as a head coach as some of the others, but at some point they were new head coaches as well too.
Mm-hmm.
And did they have success? So this guy's got a pretty good base, just like a certain, other players. He's ready to make a jump too. And I think he's got a great base of knowledge and experience behind him.
I'm excited for the journey of this next season. No question about it. Now, before I let you go, I have to, in the interest of growing the podcast, I've been trying to incorporate a little bit more Edmonton Oiler talk into the show. So I know, but you got to grow the brand. Just an overall
What do you mean
thought.
you got to grow the brand? All I can see are flaming seas. That's your brand.
That's
talking about the Oilers.
We got Leopard Hurricanes up there. Don't worry.
Oh, yeah. No, I thought you were talking about the Edmonton Oilers here for a second.
They made some savvy offseason moves. We have to admit that if we take our fanship out of it. They made some savvy moves this offseason to help bolster their club. How do you view Edmonton going into this new season?
Well, they did. And they brought in Kyle. I just went blank.
Kyle Turris.
Thank you, Kyle Turris. I really like that move, despite me not being able to remember his name. I really like that move. They didn't address goaltending, and I think that Koskinen is a good goaltender. Mike Smith is a good goaltender. I don't know as though it's as bleak as maybe the Twitterverse would have you believe. Those are two pretty good goaltenders.
Mm-hmm.
Are they going to be there in the end? I don't know, but they're pretty good. And, by the way, they have two really great players up front, and they got some good pieces. And I think Tyson Barrie is due for a bounce back. I think Tyson Barrie is due for that. He's a good offensive player. You go to Toronto, that's tough. And when it doesn't go well in Toronto, it gets even tougher. I'm from Southern Ontario. I grew up regrettably watching the Leafs. I was never a Leaf fan, but you couldn't avoid it. It was on every television. And players get eaten alive there. So for him to come out west, and he's obviously very familiar with the organization and Western Canada. So I think he's due for a bounce back. I like Chris Russell as a player. I love him as a guy. He's just a tough cowboy. They got some players up front. They got some grit. They got, another year for their coach. They're a talented team that had better find a way to take another step, because here we were earlier talking about patience. I don't know how patient Oilers Nation is right now. I just don't. And I would be mad as heck that you're looking at crucial years to Connor and Leon. And we've seen other, first overall picks get pretty ticked off about it. And it, a culture of losing breeds more losing. And not to suggest the teams, like Calgary needs to get winning for sure. But Edmonton, you've seen a lot of skilled, talented players just surrounded by too much losing. Didn't go well. And those were high picks, something that a lot of teams never had. And it didn't end up with them sticking around. And so it's just been a vicious circle and cycle up there. We'll see how it translates. I think they're a good team. I don't think they're a great team at this point, but they got great pieces and they could do some real damage.
Interesting to see how they'll perform in that all-Canadian division. Lastly here, we're going to hit real quickly on the World Junior Championships. Are you excited for them?
No. No. I mean, I haven't had a chance. I mean, I get it. It's a tradition this time of year. I know Lou loves it. I know Canadians love it. It just doesn't. If people truly loved it, I wish they'd watch all year and support these kids, these talented, unbelievable kids. And this certainly means so much to them and their families. I shouldn't downplay it. It means so much to the country. I also think the Memorial Cup and how they, not just this made for TV tournament. I think we all know that I shouldn't even go down this road. We all know the four countries that are vying for 3 medals. It's the suspense. I'm not 15 again. I think that this tournament is great, but I don't put a ton in it myself. I really don't. I think it's awesome. And you see the best on best. That part is undeniable. But suddenly people care about it. And I wish they cared about it all the time, not just over the holidays. It's a nice tradition. It feels good, but I kind of know who's vying for what medal. And it's just a matter of how they split it up. It's no real surprises for me.
Fair enough.
I don't know
I'm
if
a big.
let you down with that. Yeah,
No, you're
let a lot
fine.
of people down. Yeah.
It's a little different than Lose Answer. Lose Answer was about half an hour long.
He and I fight over it. Heated fights over it. I'll be like, oh, geez, I wonder, will it be one of Canada's, another medal? We rip and it gets him going. We just pound away on it. So, geez, is it Sweden? Is it Finland? Is it Russia? Is it Canada? I don't know. Throw the medals up in the air and let them grab it. And where's this passion year? And now he has the passion year round. But suddenly everybody's a junior hockey expert when these guys come out of the woodwork and they just watched, a network tell them how good they are. It's just a big machine that is impressive, but it doesn't do much for me. And I'm sorry to anybody. I still think we're allowed our own opinions on this. I think it just doesn't do a ton for me.
That's a valid opinion. I'm excited for it because I'm a junior hockey guy. You saw the Hurricane thing, season ticket holder to the Hurricanes. I've written articles on the WHL. So for me, the World Juniors is all about watching the next group of talent. So, I'm excited over those players. That's what it is for me. And of course, I like watching Canada win things. I'm much like Lou in that sense. But that's my excitement for the World Juniors.
Yeah. I play devil's advocate on it because I know everybody's all in and it's all that matters. And I love to just kind of chip away at it from the other side of things just to tick Lou off, and it gets him going.
I get as excited for the under 18s as well as I do for the World Juniors. So that's more my level of fanship comes in on it.
And the crying and the pressure that's heaped on them, and the 15-1 scores, and some people love it. I'll let them love it.
I can kind of see where the debate with Lou would come in there. So.
Oh yeah. Oh, it gets heated.
Yeah, it's awesome. I kept a little bit longer than we initially said, but that's.
I owe you. So thanks for having me. Sorry to.
Hey, no problem. Waiting. Thank you so much for taking time out of your day. I wish the Leslie household a happy Merry Christmas and a good New Year. And looking forward to seeing you back on Sportsnet again, hosting a Flames game sooner than later. Hopefully they can let you in the building again and get some awesome interviews with Staging and those guys as well. Looking forward to getting the whole crew back. Yeah. Totally missed that. So trying to get Staging to come on the podcast one of these days too. That's a goal of mine, and we'll see what we can get.
Maybe you need a Staging jersey behind you and he'll slide in there. We'll see.
We'll have to get one. I'm sure someone on Twitter will lend me one or something. I love Staging. Yeah. He's a good guy, very good guy. Awesome. Thank you so much, Ryan. I do appreciate your time on the podcast today. Yeah. Awesome.
Thanks for having me, John. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.